Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Facebook Live session with our special guest, one of the owners and one of the partners in Y Street Capital's company, Amy Johnson. Amy, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. So, we know we're here to talk about doing deals, and your deal doing process is something I've gotten to witness, and I've alluded that we'll get to talk about some of the stories of Y Street Capital's deals over the last couple of years and the ways that you've been involved with them. But first, give us an idea of what your framework looks like when you look to begin doing a deal. You say, okay, we have this opportunity, and you have some piece of the puzzle. So, what do you say is a piece of the puzzle that you like first? What's the first piece that gets you excited about a deal?
Um, the first part, well, I don't know I have a deal until I've really looked at all aspects of a deal because somebody could quickly say a no, but it's because they haven't looked at all avenues, right? Of everything. So before I say no, well, the first time I'll say no is if I'm just too busy and I just can't the workload I can't handle. But if I'm actually looking for a deal, then it won't be about, hey, what's my cap rate or what's the cash flow or what's the, all of those parts. Those, some people will say it has to hit these very strict rules to be able to be there. What I see is I say, okay, what's their motivation? What are they trying to do? And I'll give you an example that I just found today. Somebody came to me and said, hey, I'm selling a portfolio of homes and I'll sell them at 75% loan to value and I will sell, but I want to sell them all together. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really want to buy a portfolio of single family homes, but I said, what's your motivation? Why are you selling those properties? And then they found out, well, he's looking to sell those to move into a larger asset, to move into something he wants to get out of the single family home market. So right there, okay, now I know your motivation. So I said, if I could get you the retail price of these residential homes and time the closings in a way and package them in a 1031 so you can realize 100% value of your thing, would you want to invest that into a larger deal that I have? And he was ecstatic. He was really excited about it. So right there, now we've created, it's definitely a win-win situation. And I know that can be kind of trite and people hear that all the time, but look at the motivation. Where are people going? What do they need? Is it just cash flow? Are they searching for cash flow? Are they getting tired of the asset? So look at some of those motivations. I think the top thing that the key deal makers of the industry do is that they listen. They listen really well and they help dive down and figure out what they're trying to accomplish first before they ever share their objectives or their
So, so when you're listening, how much time are you spending, or maybe it's a percentage basis or like a proportion? How much of your time listening are you spending predicting what they're going to say so that you can maneuver appropriately versus truly absorbing their information so that you can make sure you're putting square pegs in square holes and doing the right type of next step?
yeah, I'm a pretty direct person, so I don't love to hear about like what color of paint the walls are. Um, but I will say a phrase I find helps get right to the motivation or people's goals is I say, let's wave a magic wand and tell me the perfect scenario of what you wanted to achieve. What in perfect scenario, what would you hope to achieve with it? And not go about necessarily the money. It's not, you notice I did not say wave a perfect magic wand and how much money did you get for your property? That's not what I said. I said wave a magic wand and see you know, what the scenario looks like. Because some people say, oh, the perfect scenario would be that I bring home $5,000 a month in cash, mailbox money. That's the perfect scenario. That's my ultimate goal, Amy. That's what I'm trying to achieve. Well, great. Now I can reverse engineer and figure out how to achieve that for it.
Over time, Y Street's own opportunities have shifted. We've, of course, taken on larger projects. We've taken on projects in greater geographies. I know your own geographic center has expanded, and then at some point you joined on to Y Street. How much of your deal doing has shifted just in the last 12 months based on, let's say, June 2023 to now? What types of deals were you excited about then versus now?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest part, and I tell this to people often, is for example, for a land development play, a 2-acre land parcel, it, to divide up and do something with, is as much work, if not more work, than a 20-acre parcel. So my minimum land, basis, or how large the deal is, has to, be a lot bigger now, because I've just found my time being, precious. Time is very precious. I got 5 kids, I've got businesses, and we've got to figure things out. So it's got to make sense and be worth it, because I don't want to end the deal. Everything takes twice as long than you think it will, and it costs more than you think it will. And so I don't want to end up at the very end with a small return. Like, I don't want to start a deal with a small return because something might get eaten up in the middle of it. So that would probably be my biggest thing. And people usually start small because they're new and they're trying. But I would say, don't use that as a prerequisite. Sure, go ahead and start maybe, but don't stay in that space for a very long time period for it.
So as your deal process has refined, and as you've sharpened the various divisions of Y Street's company in order to be able to do multifamily, self-storage, land development, we've got other assets in other asset classes as well. How much carryover is there from deal type to deal type? Do you feel that what you've learned in self-storage applies well to land development? What you've learned in your multifamily experience has applied well to the self-storage? Has there been carryover?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I would say the strongest part there is a lot of times in land development, specifically, I might have gotten a piece of dirt under contract ready for a self-storage project. However, the city turns it down, and it's not there, but they will accept a multifamily product on there. So now, great, we'll just pivot and move to a multifamily. So absolutely, it carries over all the time. I would say, even though I've been tempted to look into a lot of other different types of asset classes, because I'm always curious to, like RV parks or other things like that. But I realize, okay, Amy, focus, keep your ADHD in check and focus, and really focus in on those so you can rinse and repeat. But they do carry over, and they do, but they're very different still.
You talked about the way that you think about a motivation of a seller and a buyer, and that classic view of how to draw out exactly what they're looking for so that you can perhaps deliver a win-win situation. So let's talk about some specific cases, and we have some live questions coming in, so we'll start to get to those in a second. If you, for example, had a parcel of land, let's just for argument's sake, let's say it's 10 acres. So you couldn't build 400 houses on it, but you might be able to do, depending on the zoning, you might be able to do 20, you might be able to do 30, you might be able to do 10. How does someone who owns something like that put themselves out into the marketplace to begin drawing opportunity to them? Let's say they own the land. So what's available?
Yeah, so I would say give me a call. Let's talk about it. Let's have a lunch. No. So we'll go over the thing. And here's my biggest part, and maybe it's just from my past upbringing of where I'm at, is yes, I absolutely would love to buy your land. I also kind of hate the narrative of these developers make so much money off of these farmers or whatever, of that narrative. And so I always give the option to the seller of the dirt to say, would you like to, I can give you an option. Number one, I can buy your dirt. Yes, great. I'm a normal buyer. You need to be happy with the price. That's fabulous. You know, we're both signing this contract. Nobody's taking anything from him. I hate whenever somebody says takes their land. So we have a contract between buyer and seller. That's option one. Option two, then we say, okay, hey, we want to be a little bit more flexible, and you need to be patient with me. I will pay you more for the land, but I have to get it through the city process. So I'll give you a higher price for it. So first cash offer, a faster close, a higher price offer, but you had to be patient with me and work, let me go through the city process. And the final part, which I always see as a win-win situation, but sometimes, many times actually, they won't do it always, is, well, I shouldn't say, it's about half-half. And that's where I say, hey, landowner, why don't we be partners together? I will do everything and we will go through, we'll develop this and we'll sell off these lots. And we can be partners. Because what happens is what I'm going to do is I'm going to get outside investors anyway to pay cash for your dirt and close on this land. So I'm either bringing some of the money myself or I'm bringing other investors. Why not you be the investor and we work together instead and make the most of this land? Now, is there risk associated with that? Sure. There are some soft costs of things like a survey and city work and engineering that does need to be paid, but I'm willing to risk that. I'll put some money in myself with that. You still have your land. You haven't lost your land. Take that opportunity. So if you have something like that, or your family has something like that, and you want to turn something into it, or even better yet, hey, maybe we put self-storage product on there and you have a cash flowing asset. Maybe it's not just selling the lots to a builder, or we're building a multifamily on there. You know, let's look at those options and see. So, but I will preference right now, like I said, the 3rd acre, I have a 1 acre property. It's a little bit harder to work with, but 5 acres or more, absolutely. Let's have a conversation and see.
So we know there are people all over the country who have that type of land and who are interested in doing something with it. How do you, let's say I'm again the landowner, how do I find out whether or not I'm being offered a good deal or not? What types of understanding or experience or education could I go and get to find out, is this really a good deal that Amy is offering me?
That's a great question. So a good deal is a deal that you are happy with, right? Because I have bought land from an individual as ag land, meaning that it's not zone, it's just farmland. And I've paid over $1 million for that land. And then fast forward, I've done a year's worth of work and I've turned that $1 million into $10 million, right? Now, one could say, would you say, oh, you took advantage of the farmer? No, because number one, first of all, I've offered them to partner at the very beginning. Second part is when that dirt was ag dirt, that's what that land was worth. So I would say the strongest misconception is people are looking at the future, the year's worth of all this work and risk and money that we dumped in and time that we dumped into this property to make it get to, and expertise to get to that point. They compare that, and that shouldn't be the case. So you, number one, see what it is, and you have to just kind of compare land value to land value of what is that zoned for. So if you are a landowner, one thing you could look at, and you could say, okay, I'm going to go into the city. I'm going to look at their future land use or their land use map, and it's usually color coded, and I find my parcel. Okay, so I'm going to pretend like I'm in Michigan. No, I'm just joking, because it's like a myth. I find where my land parcel is. Okay, it's right here, and I look, what are the colors around my parcel? If it's colored and the zoning around my parcel is high density housing, And my land right now is zoned ag because it's old fashioned. I have a piece of property right now that we're looking at like that. It's ag and county, and it's all surrounded by high density around it because it was a farmhouse forever. So I could look at that and I say, okay, I know my future land use, this would be easy to be able to rezone this. So my land should be worth more than if I'm just ag. And then the other part that I would say is I'm a very strong advocate of hiring a professional, working with a real estate agent or a realtor that knows land. There's a lot of realtors that don't know land. So if you're in a different state or something like that, and you're like, hey, I do want to sell, I don't want to partner, and I want my highest price, start having conversations with a broker or other developers that maybe have a brokerage inside there that can give you the best comps. So you have, because knowledge is power, right? So you have that knowledge.
And in most cases, in today's day and age, knowledge is free. So
Yes.
it's out there. The little bit of work it would take you to go and gain the little bit to not be taken advantage of is a great insight that'll serve you well, especially if you keep the land. Especially if you keep the land.
100%.
So tell us more when you think of deals you're looking for, what are other main components for you?
Oh, well, this depends other components for me. So now currently with my amount of projects that come across my desk, I now won't close on land if I can't go through the city process. I don't want to close on it ahead of time. That's kind of like paying for, I don't know, there's a phrase there, but you don't even know what you're actually getting. And then you just hope that something comes. I don't want to do that. Just because there's so many deals that are out there. I usually will float closer to two deals that will have accept terms and will be more creative with me, or partners, or how I structure a team associated with it. So as part of what I do in work all the time is I consider myself a matchmaker in figuring out what do people, what are these people's goals over here and what are these people's goals over here. And then I usually connect them together, and then I'm the facilitator to really make this goal actually happen and make that happen. And so being that matchmaker, I'm looking for all sorts of different types of matches and seeing how I can connect the dots together.
So you're looking for the right players in the field or people on the team. Are there key indicators that tell you, yes, this is someone I'd want on either the team now or the team in the future? What are things that make you say, yep, they're a good fit in this deal?
Yeah, that's a key part in partnerships and working through. I would, if there was any warning light, I would try to make sure be aware of that. If you aren't in charge, so in most of the deals, I'm the one in charge, right? So I trust myself and our process and our team of what we're doing, and I can stand behind that. So I can confidently promise and work with our LP investor, our limited partner investors that are more passive, and we go through that legal process for them to be passive. So I feel confident about that. If I am bringing on somebody else that is also an active participant, meaning I have to have their signature to run this deal, it's not just a flippant, yes, I have money. No, I have turned down money before because of the individual of what they're working with. That's its own talk and conversation in of itself. Mm-hmm. I do kind of follow my intuition there a little bit, like as there are warning lights that are happening on here. I usually have conversations. I can do a quick and dirty way of talking to individuals and seeing, okay, what's their motivation? When has a problem gone, when has a deal gone awry and how did they deal with it? And I would say anybody that says they've never had a deal go awry means, number one, they haven't done enough deals, and that they're just kind of a beginner, or they're lying to you. So because
Also a red flag.
also a red flag. So, right. So I look at that. I look at other people that they're around. And so those are just some of the aspects I look at before I will go in and partner, but we'll talk. We'll usually have and then we have to be aligned at the front of motivation. And then I can't stress enough to have legal documents to back up your conversations as well, as far as, divorce agreements, how do you get out of a partnership and all of that. So
They call it papering up your arrangements. And in my own experience in watching our team work, to say, wow, we are fully papered and we know that we are Loctite, we know everything that we've said is in writing, is such a comforting feeling. And you might not realize that you don't have that comforting feeling until one day you realize, I wish I had done that little bit of extra work to paper up the agreements beforehand. Because once you've got it, you know you're safe. If you don't have it, you may not realize just how tenuous the relationship is.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a great question here. Rebecca asks, in all circumstances, why would someone do a lease up a development, going through the lease up, going through the complexities of building a new asset, going through all of the things that it requires to build a new project, instead of buying an acquisition of an existing asset? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say the largest part is usually there's a huge amount of equity growth that happens when you take raw dirt, build a structure on it, stabilize that structure, and then down the road sell it. So that's number one. There's huge amounts of equity that happen there. Does take some time and effort. The second part is when we're building multifamily or a structure, it's because that type of asset may not be available in that market because of a lot of growth that's happening in that market. We follow that growth, so that might not be available there. And then the second part is the quality of the asset. I really enjoy holding a Class A. I've been there, done that, in going with a D or C property and moving it to a B, and it just wasn't something I was really proud of. And I hated it, actually. So I hated the property. And so I just didn't want to, that for me, that was the part. So think of it as a longer term investment for it, but it's a larger lift. There are a lot of markets that building new construction will not work. We have turned away free land before because people have said, hey, I have this free land, I want to do something with it, and we want to build this structure.
And a lot of free land, not a little free land.
Yeah, a lot of free land. And we looked at the numbers, and their price per square foot for rentals just it's not hitting it. So it wouldn't make sense. So we've diligenced that and have gone through. That's something really important. Make sure you have a sponsor that's not looking at just pie in the sky numbers, and they're being really realistic and their pro forma for it so that they can see. But hopefully that answers your question.
So in all of the deals you've done so far, I'll ask you for a favorite story, but maybe I'll also take this chance to tell a brief story from when I was early on with Y Street and I got to watch some of our team's process and the way we do deals play out in real time, in person, at a round table in front of us. So we'll come to Amy's favorite deal in a moment, but this hopefully gives you, the listener, an insight on what it looks like when someone has got serious experience. So Y Street was considering an acquisition of a portfolio. We met on site in a West Coast hotel, 20-foot high ceilings, this massive room, which was amusing because the room was empty except for a round table in the center. So this was very picturesque in a very amusing way. The only thing we were missing was a spotlight on the center. But this room, two partners sit down, two of our partners sit down, and I'm sitting there as well. It created the relationship, and we start to work. And what I watched you do, Amy, was the most subtle pull and push of the conversation, both very disciplined to ensure we were hitting the right elements of the conversation. We were drawing out the right information, but also making sure that our background was being protected. We were getting clear that what we were bringing to the table was essential to making any relationship work. And your approach in that very subtle, almost like a coaxing out of information, we drew out some information that later proved to be incorrect, which basically dashed the deal. But along the way, that whole approach both preserved our interests and kept us in a very good negotiating position. And it was a fascinating hour and a half. I wish I had taken a photograph, because the round table in the enormous room was really something. So for you, what's a favorite deal, and maybe a little bit of the story as well, on what's been one for the books for you?
I have a favorite deal. I can't take credit for the actual negotiation of the actual contract, though. So I don't know if that one's fair to say. So
Try us.
we had a self-storage, a product that was already that we wanted to buy. It was an existing self-storage. Okay. And we conversations. So first of all, is just because you get a one no doesn't mean it's a no forever. Okay. It meant if you get a one no, it meant we don't have the right, what's important to the person. Right. So we got a no, and then we keep coming back. We found next to this asset was a house that had a large vacant lot behind it. And so we got that under contract, and we said, okay, well, he won't sell this self-storage. We'll just go ahead and build our own right next door to him. And then we bought this dirt, and $500,000 for that dirt. And then we said, hey, we're just going to build this self-storage next to us. Are you sure we can't, what if we gave you some seller finance on this, because we found out, hey, it's cash flow that's really important to him. And we structured a seller finance deal for that, where we only had to bring him just under to do both the lot, and that was just under $1 million for this self-storage. We go through, we had a seller finance on there, and we paid cash for the other dirt. Now we go around, we entitled the other piece of dirt for an expansion because it's right next to it. So now we just open up the site to it's nice and big. And we get that improved. I mean, not improved yet. We get it entitled. Okay. And then with that being entitled, we go and we have the seller finance on there. That asset went from, we gained about, between just improving the asset and adding the extra addition, we hadn't actually built the addition, we gained about $4 million in equity for it. That equity, now we were able to build the whole other section, a whole other expansion, without having to put any extra money into the deal for it. They were able to leverage the full part. So when I think it was Rebecca asking, why would you do new development? Well, right there, that was huge for us. So now we've got that, and we spent basically, I can't remember the numbers on that one exactly, but we have about $5 million of equity basically total for that altogether. And so that was a slam dunk deal for us. And there was so much value that did come about with the, a tired business repeating. And so doing the combination of the two together really made it a home run of, yes, a value add business plus the development to add onto it, plus the creative financing, was kind of a really great success story.
That's fantastic. Well, Amy, thank you so much for joining us here. As you all know, we do this once a month. a partner from Y Street will contribute some insight into what we're working on or into what is going on in the marketplace. And we love your live questions, so please continue to send them in to us. Our next one will be the first Friday of July, same time, same place. That would be July 5th of 2024 at 4 p.m. Central Time. And we look forward to seeing you. Thanks so much, Amy.
Yeah, thank you.